Well, here we are. It is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025. We're a day early this week because tomorrow's the 4th, and we've got some things we've decided we really want to do, and it's a holiday and so forth around here. It's sort of a big one. So we're up a day early this week, so I hope you don't mind. Not a lot has been going on this week. It's been sort of a quiet week. There haven't been any really great auctions that have finished up that I'm aware of. There was a Sotheby's sale that finished a few days ago that we'll talk about on another day. But in general, live auctioneers and valuable, it's a little bit quiet. There are some sales coming up. A few things popped up on the radar this week. But also this week, I want to talk about just sort of a reminder of some sales that are closing in the next week that we talked about several weeks ago, just to perk the memory that these are ending. And also, I'm going to do a little bit of a rant toward the end on something that's been happening. I've been getting an increasing number of inquiries from everybody about who've been buying these reproduction Yuan blue and white jars that are so prevalent all over the market. And I want to go through that a little bit and explain what the problem is, and maybe save some folks a lot of money because people have been paying actually some shocking numbers for some of these pieces. So keep that in mind. And for those of you that are on Patreon now, a lot of you have joined. Thank you. You saw that we did the weekly watch list page where I go down other things that are on my watch list and so forth and talk about other things. And I wanted to remind everybody that during the quiet period between now and September, you can go to when you're on your Patreon account, go into the collection section and use the auction house list. Because you're going to find these are the auction houses we've added over here. There's a lot of them. I've talked about it before, but just as a reminder, you can go through and you can go directly to sites, because sometimes they are up on their own site a week or two before they're on Live Auctioneers, and some of them don't use Live Auctioneers, some of them don't use Invaluable. And if you don't want to miss anything, you go straight to the auctioneer's website of his own site and check it out there. And of course, if you buy through the auctioneer's website, you save 5% on all of your purchases. So in many cases, it'll cover a big cost of a big chunk of the shipping. Even if you spend $5,000 or $10,000, you're going to save $250 to $500 on a $10,000 bill, and you end up with the shipping being deferred by the savings on the not having to pay through Live Auctioneers, because they take 5% of the transaction, and so does Invaluable. So it's just a reminder. All right. And now on to what we're doing here. Hold on. There we go. This is, we're going to go through some of the lots that are coming up that I want to talk about. And then we're going to talk about Yuan jars and just try to figure out what's going on with that. This is a sale that's coming up at Stair Gallery on July 10th. And it's a pretty good looking sale. They seem to be selling off the collection of a very good dealer from Pound Ridge, New York, who was there for many years, James Lambaugh. And he handled great stuff, great China trade, great furniture, all kinds of things. He was a generalist dealer, but he handled some very, very fine things. And one of the pieces, lots that's in this sale came from him is this. This is a huge pair of Famille Jaune and with Famille Rose Mandarin scenes on it that was done probably about 1850 to 1860, roughly. These are big. These are 25 inches tall. They're over 2 feet tall. They look like they're in very, very nice condition. And just straight up, they are just pretty. They're just really, really pretty looking. I like them a lot. I think they're absolutely elegant. They've got nice colors, well decorated, good enameling all the way around. And they've provided some good pictures, as they always do. You'll notice there's no wear. The iron red on here, this bronze colored iron, and the gilding is all in beautiful condition. And you go around it. The Mandarin scenes are nicely done. Lots of negative space around them to really frame up the images being shown. They look like they're in great condition. And the estimate is peanuts, $800 to $1,200 for the pair. So get a condition report. That sounds crazy low. We've seen these in the past. And we've seen similar examples in other auctions over the years, and they sell for a lot more. They typically sell for 2 to 3 thousand anyway. Sometimes they bring 4 or 5. So the estimate, maybe the estimate just be maybe Stair's way of saying there's no real reserve on these. The starting price is only $250. So you want to look into that. And you may get a live auctioneers is if you bid on live auctioneers, they have crazy shipping rates. Bid through Stair Gallery and then talk to them about shipping. Usually they can give you a UPS store in the area that ships UPS ground regularly. Be the most reasonable of all your options, but they will cost probably a few $100s to ship just because of their size. But they're big and they're worth it. All right. And the other thing that in the same sale is this, and these are really, really pretty. Let's see, these are 9.5 inches. They're early 19th century reticulated dishes with butterflies and flowers on them. The enameling on this is very soft. It's a very soft, elegant enamel. And Lembaugh bought these apparently from Earl Vandekar in the UK. Who was another top dealer. The Vandekars were been around for a long time, and it's a family. Several people in the family are dealers. These are absolutely beautiful. These are great looking dishes. They're estimated at $700 to $900. I hope you look into them. I think they're pretty terrific examples. And also this is a monster. This is one of the biggest 18th century export plates I've ever seen. It's 21 3/4 inches in diameter. And it's been made into a table. If you want the table, I suppose you get it shipped. Otherwise, I'd say throw the table away. It's a later table. It's not anything of particular merit. But this is the plate, 21 3/4 inches. That is a very, very big plate. And I looked it over. I don't see any damage or repairs to it. It looks like it's in very, very good condition. You want to get a condition report and so forth. But he had sold it. The old price tag is still on here, $4,950. Maybe this was in his shop. I don't know. But it is a beautiful piece of porcelain and huge, 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 huge. He liked big presentation pieces, Lembaugh. He liked big pieces. Big gutsy pieces. That's a gutsy piece. And then over to this. This is an interesting lot. There's a very nice. If you've been looking for a good Mandarin hot water plate, there's one in this lot here on the left. There's a very lovely pair of 18th century Amari palette decorated dishes, and then this Famille Rose plate at the top. The plate and the hot water dish appear to be 1820s, 1840s, and the Chinese Amari plate, these appear to be 18th century. They're very, very attractive, and they provide a lot of photographs. There they are. The two saucers were sold originally were priced at $385. That one didn't have a price on it, and this is the hot water plate. It's a good one. It's a perfectly nice one. And it's got a monogram at the top. I can't really read it. I'm not sure what it says, but I think it's a very attractive package. And this was priced at $1,285 back in the day, I guess. And right now, the whole estimate for the whole lot is $600 to $800. So that represents a good value. If you can get this lot for $600 to $800, it's a very, very good value. I expect it to bring a bit more, maybe $1,200 to $1,500, but it may not. You don't know. It's summer. People aren't paying attention. You might get yourself a really, really good deal on it. All right. And also, there's a whole bunch in the Stair sale. There's a whole bunch of 18th and early 19th century porcelain figures like these. These are particularly good ones. These are very fine quality, 18th century, nice enameling on them. And the figures, notice their hands are all intact, no broken fingers, anything like that, because they often get broken hands and fingers. And the estimate on these is $1,200 to $2,400. I suspect they're going to bring $800 to $1,200. They may bring a little more. I think the high estimate on this is a little high, but they're absolutely great. The starting price is just $400. I suspect if there's a reserve, it's probably at around $600, which is more than reasonable. So do check those out. And then on to some other things. I'm going to talk about a couple of pieces of furniture that turned up. Those of you who don't like furniture, you're going to have to wait a minute. But this is a neat piece of furniture, American furniture, Queen Anne desk on frame, that was either made in central Vermont or central New Hampshire, and it's very much in the English style. and it's at Merrill's in Williston, Vermont, on July 11th. So it's a little over a week from now. And what's really interesting about this furniture is that this is a style of furniture that was sort of high end. It would have been made originally in the city cabinet shop. It would have probably been made of walnut, or made of, in England, or made of mahogany in the U.S., or perhaps even if they made this in the South, they might have made it out of walnut or perhaps maple. But this was made out of pine because country cabinet makers up here, they were perfectly able to build very nice pieces. This is a very nice provincial one. But if they had access to walnut and mahogany, they wouldn't have made one for the local consumption because it would have been too expensive. Pine, though, was very common and very plentiful and very workable. And they made this one out of pine, and it's mellowed to a very, very nice color. But the quality of the work is very good. The base is beautifully done with these drops in the middle, these nice cabriolet legs coming down, ending in pad feet. It's a neat little desk. It really, really is. And it measures 36 inches tall, 19 inches wide, so it's fairly diminutive. It's fairly small. You could probably put a laptop on it, but it's a neat piece of Americana. It's a good piece of furniture. It appears to be a New England piece. And then over to this. This is coming up at Doyle's. Doyle is having a sale. It's an interior sale. It's a general sale. But in this sale is this. This is a very nice Korean bowl. It's nicely laid out. It's rather elegant. There's no black inlay in it. It's all white. They just use white inlay, the white clay inlay to make the circles and so forth. And the back of it is all gummed up, of course, with the kiln grit you expect to see, and more white inlay. And it measures about 7.5 inches in diameter. It looks like a nice bowl. If you're a Korean buyer, you remember back in the 90s, these things were selling for, $1,500 to $2,500. Well, right now, this one's estimated at $300 to $500, which I think is more than reasonable. $150 opening bid. I expect it to bring a little more. I would think it would bring 6 to 8. You don't know, though. And these are the kind of things you leave bids on. Always leave bids. If there's something you see that you like, leave a bid, for heaven's sakes, and you may get it. You may get it. You never know. I had somebody email me this morning. He got a piece on an opening bid for $50 that he had looked at with me, and you don't know. You don't know anymore. All right. And then hopping along over to this. This is a reminder to everybody that the Case Antique Sale is coming up. This is in Knoxville on July 12th, a little over a week from now. Just a reminder, because I think they have some really nice auctions at Case. I think they do a good job. They do very good photography. They're quite good on descriptions, and they get very nice things. And if those of you are rug buffs, there's a very nice selection of Turkoman rugs in this sale. And for some reason, they lotted them up like this. I don't know why. Normally, each one of these would be sold independently. These are both nice mutra balls. They're both 19th century. They both look very good. It's worth looking into, all right? And there's also a very, very fine Saruk Farhan massive carpet in this sale that we talked about a few weeks ago. Just a reminder, that's coming up. That's a spectacular, spectacular carpet. But these are very nice, and there's quite a few of them in here. I think there's probably 15 or so Turkoman pieces. So those of you who like Central Asian textiles, you want to look into it. There's also a very, very rare Teki Asmalik embroidered piece in this sale. It's going to bring a lot of money. They typically bring $4,000 to $6,000. I think it's up to $1,500 now, but it's a very, very good example. They're rare. Those are rare birds. Other things that are coming up, you may remember we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. This really neat pie safe. I love these old painted pie safes. We saw another one a few months ago that brought $5,000 or $6,000. I think this one is just as good. Beautifully done, and I believe it's made of walnut, isn't it? Yeah, it's a walnut pie safe. But I love the front painted panels. Love the way the panels are done on the front of it. Very nice. They look very much in a way like some of the Pennsylvania Dutch stuff you see. But this is probably Eastern Tennessee example. Nice looking piece, good clean wood, gadrooned edge, and so forth. Estimated at 2 to 4,000. That's low. That's going to be 2 to 2,400. It's going to be low on this. It's already up to 1,700. It has 100, and this will show you there's some strength coming back in the American market for the very decorative stuff. This has 122 watchers on it. 122 people are watching this. It's either because they have one like it and they want to know what it's worth, or they're going to go after it. And I'll be really interested to see what this brings. And the other thing they have is in one of my other favorite Southern forms. This is a very fine federal period of Virginia hunt board. And hunt boards were sort of miniature sideboards. They were very popular in the South, as I've said before. They were put out in country houses for people coming back from hunting. And they could stand over one of these. It was like a table, and they'd have drinks and a bit of food and get some nourishment into you and so forth. And this is a really, really good one. This is one of the nicest ones I've ever seen, actually. I think it's absolutely beautiful. The brasses look good on it. They may be original. I can't tell from the pictures. You want to always check the inside of the drawer to see if there are other holes from previous brasses. There it is, but they did take it all apart. I don't know if they show the inside of the drawers. Nice dovetail work. And we'll go back. The brasses look like they may be original. The brasses may be original on this. So that's quite a thing. Any rate, let's see. The walnut and cherry, tiger maple front veneers on it. It's got veneers on it, everything going for it. It's a very good piece of furniture. It's elegant. It's a beautiful thing. All right, and then over to this. This is also in the case sale. Is this really nice pair of Mandarin vases. They measure about 15 inches tall. I like them. They're good. They're sort of bright. I think they overlit them a little in the photograph, but the lids are quite nice. And the lids have those nice finials on top of the food lions holding the ball, and it's intact. These are good-looking vases, jars, probably made in the 1840s or so. Very nice decoration all the way around. So there's something there to enjoy. All right. And now I want to get on to talking about the problem of these Yuan jars. All right. Here they are. These are all of the Yuan, quote, Yuan jars that are available right now on Live Auctioneers. Every one of them is a fake. All of these are fakes. All right. And the reason you see so many of these, well, there's two reasons. One, the originals are worth a lot of money. All right. I mean, that's the really big thing. Ones like this sell for, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. Some of the lesser ones sell for, this one sold for $1 million. All right. This sold for $1 million, basically 8 million Hong Kong in 2016. Now, there's a reason why they make so many copies of these. There's two reasons. One, the originals are worth a fortune. Actually, three reasons. Two, they're easy to make. These are not difficult jars to make because you have to always remember, Yuan jars were the very beginning of blue and white porcelain making. So they had areas that were rough and rusticated. The bottoms of them could be rather sandy and scratchy. They weren't the highly refined porcelains that came along later in the next couple of 100 years throughout the Ming Dynasty, when they really cleaned them up and really made them slick and beautiful and perfected the underglazed blue decorations and all that. These were their first efforts, which are pretty extraordinary, which is why they bring so much money. All right, because you always remember that when cobalt is applied onto white porcelain, it's black. It looks like black powdered ink. And when it blooms, the color blooms in the kiln as it's being fired. And this was an exceptionally nice one. This was a beautiful jar. All right, but the point is that they make copies of them because, well, they think people believe in magic. Magical thinking, of course, comes into play. And they also know they can make them very easily and relatively inexpensively and export them by the boatload. All right. So this is why you see row after row of them turning up on on Live Auctioneers. And it's always at the auction houses that seem to have an irrational, overdone abundance of rare things in every sale they do. But they're not Sotheby's or Christie's or Bonhams or any of the bigger other European auction houses or Pandolfini or any of that. This is summer auction. These are all they sell are fakes. That's all they sell. Luma auctions. Luma seems to have like 6 yuan jars, including one of these extremely rare. Now this one has bids. This one's already bid up to $1,500. It has a 6 to $12,000 estimate. Exquisite underglaze with underglazed red. Now everybody that's been around for any length of time knows that yuan jars with underglazed blue and underglazed red with all this work on it, if that were authentic, it's got designs on it that they never did. But if of that general style, those are the rarest of the rare. Those are $6 to $10 million porcelains. All right, and look at this. You already have a couple of people seem to be bidding on it. It's hard to imagine, but they are, and they do sell them. All right, the chances of finding one. This is the reality check. There are probably maybe 300 or 400 of these in the entire world. Most of them are in museums of the authentic ones. There are tens of thousands of copies. But you have to think about it in the scale of Western art. Just for an example, if somebody said, I found a Monet, at Luma auctions out west, you'd laugh at them. And you're more likely to find a Monet than you are to find a Yuan jar. Monet was much more prolific than the Yuan Dynasty. I believe I read somewhere that Monet did 13,000 or something like that works of art in his life. He did several thousand oil paintings, and then he did something like 10,000 watercolors and other drawings. All right. But nobody ever thinks they found a Monet anymore or found a real Picasso, unless they mistake a print for an authentic one, which can happen and has happened. But the idea that you're going to find something that they only made several hundreds of this quality. There were lots of yuan jars made, but the underglazed blue ones of this style, these high-end styles that were given as often as given by the Mongol emperors as gifts of tribute to foreign governments or foreign people in the outer edges of the empire, in Turkey and Persia. They shipped them over by caravan to them. In India, many yuan jars went. All right, but it's still handfuls. And the idea of finding a real one that's been overlooked at this point in time of history is nearly impossible. And I'm saying that in very strong terms, nearly impossible, because they were all absorbed. They've all been identified and absorbed into and cataloged into well-known collections. They've been well-known and documented, or they're in institutions. All right, they are not going to turn up in an auction. A jar like this one here, if this was authentic, it would be worth a small fortune. This is a reproduction. It's a fake, but they make them because they're easy to make. That's why. This is not a complicated piece of pottery. You need a relatively talented, skilled potter who can shape it, and then you just do a very coarse finish on the bottom, barely clean it up, leave it rough, maybe even add some iron particles to it so that it oxidizes in the kiln when they fire it, and then they get some medium-grade decorators to do them. And if you study the authentic ones, you'll be able to recognize the faces don't match, the scenes are wrong, the decoration's off, and so forth. But people get caught up in the idea because it's money. And they think of money, and they go out and buy them. And I'm mentioning this because I've had a spate of inquiries through the identification service in the last month of people that have bought these, and they've picked them up at they picked one was picked up at a yard sale for not a lot of money, so it's not a big deal. I think he paid $30 for it, but he thought it might be real. And I've seen them sell for in the thousands of dollars in auctions, and you'll find them on live auctioneers that have sold for that much money. And the people are buying a jar that you can pick up in China for $300 or $400 or less. All right. I mean, if you want a reproduction, buy a reproduction and use it and put flowers in it and, put it on your patio for the summer as a decoration. That's perfectly fine. But there's something happens to the human brain when money gets involved, and the joy of finding something that potentially they think is worth a lot of money often overrides the common sense analysis of saying, well, what would you say if somebody showed you a painting by Monet or a painting by Picasso, or a painting by Leonardo da Vinci, or a painting by Corot. You'd say no, of course it's not. It's a reproduction, and you should ask yourself the same question. All right, the higher in value things go in the Chinese art market or any art market, the rarer they are and the more in demand they are. And when you have a lot of demand, it means they're going to get spotted and identified long ago. There are very few surprises anymore in the art world as there were 30 or 40 or 50 years ago, where things popped up everywhere because the values weren't that high. They weren't being looked for. They weren't being chased as much. Today, everything is being chased. Everything is being tracked down. And if you're a collector and you buy for your own pleasure, double check yourself every time you see anything that's purportedly from the Ming or the Yuan Dynasty, or if you're a dealer for that matter, of course, or a rare imperial piece of the Qing Dynasty. The vast majority of them that are on the market today, and I mean 99% of them, are modern copies. All right, they're not Republic, because people have been using the Republic period excuse for things that are brand new because they know they can't pass it off as 18th century, but they might be able to pass it off as Republic. All right, I can tell you back in the 80s and before the boom started in the Chinese art market, you didn't see anywhere near the amount of stuff around then that today they report as Republic. It wasn't in the market. And if it was around, if it's around now, it should have been around then. And I can tell you it wasn't. All right, it just wasn't. There's a sudden flood of Republic wares on the market, and the same thing goes with the Yuan jars and rare Ming pieces, Chunhua enamel wares, and so forth. Those pieces are rare because they didn't make many of them, and they're rarer on the market because they got absorbed into museums and into prominent collections. As I said, back prior to World War II. You look at old institutional collections, you'll still see them in there. Old museums, the Met, the British Museum, they have them. And you look at the accession dates, and the vast majority of them were absorbed into the museums back then, because that's when they became available, and they were being recognized as being terrific and wonderful and great and fabulous things to own, worth preserving for posterity, and they were absorbed in. There are very few instances in the world where these pieces now just turn up. Generally, the only way that could happen is if it ended up in a collection in some obscure part of Europe or some obscure part of the Middle East, and it was just locked in a room and forgotten. The building collapsed on it, and they dug the building out and they found the jar. All right, that's how unlikely you are to find one in America or in the UK floating around at a country sale, or in France or anywhere else. You do not see them in Europe with the prevalence that you're seeing them in the United States, which makes no sense at all, because Europe was receiving ceramics from China long before the Americans were. Remember, the Americans were only getting Chinese porcelain after about 1790. All right, the first ship that went over was out of New York, and that wasn't until around 1784 or 5, and they didn't really start doing any serious trade with porcelain on board the ships until we got into the 19th century. And by then, Europe had already, the Europeans, the Dutch, the French, the Dutch East India Company, the British East India Company, they'd been over there for a while. They had strong relationships. A few things came back then, and then a flood of it came back, of course, after about 1850, and through the various opium wars and upheavals that took place. They all went to Europe for the most part, except for a few American millionaires, the Rockefellers and some other families, early collectors who got in on it by using agents like C.T. Lew and so forth. And then they brought things to America. And what did they do? They left them all to the Met. They left them all to the Museum of Fine Arts, the Mellon Collection, the Pittsburgh Art Museum, Cleveland, San Francisco, and they've all been institutionalized. All right, so to speak. So I'm just saying it to try to drive home the point that do not buy these. If you find a jar somewhere and you think it looks Yuan, think fake, think copy. All right, and there aren't many things in the world you can say that about. That it's quite as absolute as I'm stating it, but in this case, it is, and it just breaks my heart to see people send me pictures of things, and they say I paid $4,400 for this at an auction, and I have to tell them it's a brand new copy. It has virtually no market value. It's just a nice big decoration to drop some flowers into when you have guests or you want to cheer up a room. All right, and which is fine if you buy them for that purpose. I have no problem with that at all. Go for it. Save yourself $1 million. But if you're pursuing in the market without an enormous amount of knowledge and an enormous amount of experience, great rarities, you are going to get stung by these copies. It's guaranteed. Unless you really pay attention to them. So just keep all that in mind. This is like a public service announcement, I guess, today, because I've seen so many of them lately, and the other night I was just dumbfounded by how many of them are turning up in people's homes and so forth. All right, they are very rare, and if you go to Christie's or Sotheby's, you'll find them. You'll find them. All right, but you won't find many. All right, and these are all of the ones that have sold basically the last 20 years, and many of them have a lot of restoration to them. They've had necks replaced. They've had things done to them. This vase, this jar here, for example, sold for 15 million pounds. All right, pounds. That's about $18 million. It's a very rare type of jar. It's got horseback riders and landscapes, beautiful dark blue cobalt. They're masterpieces. They're beautiful. All right. And I don't know where this one ended up, but at some point it will probably end up in an institution or museum, and that's fine. But you're not going to find this out here. There may be one or two of these in the entire world done in this pattern. All right. But in the fake and the forgery market, you're going to find all kinds of familiar faces because they copy the ones that sell for the most money. If a jar with the dragon and the peonies and it does very well and brings a huge amount of money, within 6 months they'll be coming out of Qingdacheng and being sold on the market as authentic. All right, they did the same thing. We all know the famous Kangxi vase story. Same sort of thing. The one that was in the film Faking It. In China, and they made a spectacular reproduction underglazed red vase. And the copy sold for $300,000 or $400,000 or something. And since then they've been turning up in auctions pretty regularly all over the U.S. We saw a bunch of them up in the Netherlands, up in Bruges last year. And those, even though they're fakes, people still believe they might be real, and they paid $12,000 for one. It's brand new. It's got no age at all, and that's the way it is. All right. So anyway, that was my little rant for the day. I hope you take it to heart. I don't blame people for wanting to find a great thing. We all want to find great things, but don't let your interest in finding a great thing and the value associated with it confuse your thinking about the logical reality of the possibility of it being real, which is as close to zero as you can get. It's like close to absolute, the temperature, absolute zero. This is pretty close as to absolute zero as you can get. So please always remember that if it's a rare type, and it's worth a great deal of money from any period of any type, ask yourself, what's the likelihood? And be honest with yourself. What is the likelihood? All right, and hopefully you'll get some good books and learn up and join some museums and do some hands-on days at institutions and really get to know the stuff before you plunk down any money. And always ask for help if you're not sure before you jump at it. All right, that's it for the week. Have a great 4th of July, and thanks so much for watching. You're all appreciated, and we'll be back next week. We'll take a look at that. I haven't had a chance to go through the Sotheby sale yet. It's been real busy around here this week. But I'll take a look at the Sotheby results and see how it looked. I looked at part of the sale, by the way, and they looked like they had good results. So the market looks pretty strong. And as you know, the stock market is raging. The jobs report just came in. It was much better than expected. Inflation has apparently not been affected at all by all this tariff business. But all of that bodes very well for the collector market. It means there'll be plenty of money coming in. The S&P, I just checked the other day, it was up 13%, 14% year over year, and it's higher now than it was before the tariff announcement was made. And all of that is very good for collectors because you need to have investment income and retirement money set aside before you go off buying antiques. And the better the market does, the better we all do. So I'm very pleased about all that. And I was very pleased to see the unemployment reports. Unemployment's dropping still, and inflation is still dead low. So there we go. So thumbs up, and hopefully this will keep the Chinese porcelain market healthy and strong, and other art as well. All right. Have a great week. See you next time. Thank you. And subscribe if you haven't already. Bye-bye.